We're getting closer and closer to the polls closing. In fact, we are just about to hit the top of the hour, and any moment now, we are going to see the very first results in some of these key California races, literally seconds away. The anticipation is building for the LA mayor's race, the governor's race as well.
Happy New Year!
It is 11 o'clock now on the East Coast, 8 o'clock in the West. And polls have just officially closed in California. We are moments away, maybe 2 minutes, maybe 4 minutes from seeing some of these numbers come in. And all eyes are on the races for LA mayor and California governor. At this point, we want to see where things stand right now. Right now, obviously, too early to call when it comes to that LA mayor's race. You've got the California gubernatorial race, also too early to call. Tom Steyer, Steve Hilton, Javier Becerra. Another reminder, don't mean to sound like a broken record, but it's important. Top two will face off in November, regardless of political party. Significant there. We've also got the LA mayor's race as well. We said too early to call. At this point, Karen Bass, Spencer Pratt, Nithya Raman, too. Listen, we know that it's going to take a second for some of the vote to start to come in. Over the course of the next 60 minutes, as Steve has laid out, we are going to start to see some of these data, some of these numbers come in. I just saw you, Steve, talking with Adam. You don't have anything just yet?
No,
okay.
False alarm.
Okay, that's okay. I've got one eye on you at all times
like
as we go through some of the other results here. We've talked about some of these other interesting races as well. Like, look at this, the Iowa governor's race on the Republican side. Too close to call here with about 87% of the vote in. You've got Trump-backed Randy Feenstra up against Zach Lane, backed by the Maha movement. Feenstra had been seen as more of a front-runner in this race, but this one is a nail-biter, projected as too close to call at the moment. We are watching for some data to come in on this as well. Super interesting. We've also got the New Mexico race as well. The Republican primary for governor here, too early to call between Gregory Hull, Doug Turner.
It's all so stupid.
In South Dakota, a three-way governor's race as well. The current governor, Larry Roden, who is took over for Kristi Noem when she moved on to go serve in the president's cabinet. She obviously has since departed that position.
Oh my God,
thank you.
I was just in my head like, isn't that how Amanda Bynes used to laugh in the Amanda Show? Maha!
President Trump has not made an endorsement in this race. We'll talk more about that as that race gets going.
Shouts out the Amanda Show.
You've also got the Democratic Senate primary in Montana. You've got Riley Neal, Alani Bankhead as well. There is an independent in this race, too. Could be interesting. Kurt Alme, we've said, is going to be the winner on the Republican side there. Let's go to the East with the New Jersey Republican Senate race. Whoever will take on Cory Booker there.
Well, we all share one brain cell these days.
Justin Murphy there with 32.9% of the vote. Let me bring in now Steve Kornacki at the big board.
Oh my God, he just got so
There's
excited.
Nothing we can do at this point but wait for the vote to be counted.
Coming.
And as you say, we're going to get some coming in
he just
Southern
did like
California.
A little...
We're going to be watching to see what that means for some of these battlegrounds and obviously the LA mayor's race and the governor's race too.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just a question of kind of who goes first right here.
If Steyer and Hill are top two, is there a chance the Dems try to blow them up in the general? That would be fucking insane.
The vast majority of the vote that's cast in California is done by mail. And this vote has been coming in well before Election Day. And what that allows these counties to do is to take these vast piles of ballots. They don't just sit there. They can process them. They can get them ready. And they can report them out. All that vote that arrived before Election Day, they can report that out in one big batch.
So here's what we want, y'all. We want Steyer and Hilton to make it to the top two.
Is going to be that. And then the next phase that's going to layer in on top of that, again, we expect this within the first hour, 90 minutes in most of these big counties, is going to be the vote that was cast in person. You know, a lot of folks went, not a lot, but some folks went in person today and did it. Some folks did early voting in California. So that gets reported next. And generally what that'll do in the first 90 minutes or so is get us close to about 2/3 of the vote statewide counted. The question at that point will be is there enough clarity to know, as you say, a top two race for governor? Do we know, is there clear separation between the top two and everyone else so that we can call it? Or does it go to overtime? Is there a first place candidate who's separated from the rest so we can say the first place candidate goes forward, we're not sure on the second? So if we don't know that, you know, in that first wave there, that's when you start with saying we may have to wait for these late arriving mail ballots. And they can come in California up till a week after the election. That's where it gets the reputation for such lag in reporting out its results.
And the same deal goes for LA too with the top two. And let's talk about that because, you know, there's been a lot of talk around Spencer Pratt. You heard Conan chat about it earlier. We've talked about it with Ryan and Garrett.
Steve Hilton's
and it's an interesting
UK
dynamic
national.
here because I think Republican voters make up about 14-15% of registered voters in LA, 55% Democrat. But Donald Trump, President President Trump got something like 26% of the vote in LA back in 2024.
He was able to get 26%. Karen Bass, when she ran in 2022, she defeated Rick Caruso, who had been a Republican at one point. She tried to make that an issue against him. He was able to get there into the mid-40s in that race. Democrats, though, did something in California and Los Angeles a few years ago. They changed the date of these mayoral elections. They used to be in off years. They used to have lower turnout. They'd be in like odd-numbered years. So Los Angeles elected a Republican mayor in 1993 and 1997.
That's right.
Richard Riordan, was his name for folks who remember that clearly. Hallie does. And,
last Republican to win the mayor's race in LA.
Correct. Right. And he did it in an odd-number year. And Democrats decided they wanted to sync it up with nights like this, statewide primaries, congressional primaries, when there's far more people voting. There's more. These partisan organizations are more engaged. The idea was, more turnout for a mayoral race would be a good thing, but also it lets the mayoral race get caught up in the politics around it, too. There's a thought that is advantage to the Democrats, too, in Los Angeles. So it's an additional thing. If Pratt is going to succeed in doing what Riordan did, he's going to have to do it in a different kind of year. I'm
going to let you stare at this thing until something blinks or something lights up. And while we do, I want to go to Liz Kreutz, who's in LA for us at a polling site. And Liz, what's interesting here, there are people who might be in line. They still want to vote even though polls have closed. Talk me through what you're seeing where you are.
Hey, Holly.
Yeah, so basically the largest conservative bloc in Los Angeles, which is the San Fernando Valley, may not be turning out as strongly because they don't have as much enthusiasm since Donald Trump is not on the ballot. So if the turnout is lower in San Fernando Valley, then that's really bad for Spencer Pratt. Or if he's not pulling numbers like Rick Caruso did last election, that's bad for him. The dump is coming. Okay, let's see what CNN is.
Change.
Where's that coming from?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Lara Coates Live Election. As it's waiting to see if that viral online energy translates to actual votes.
Well,
this is outside of Pratt headquarters.
Talking right now, and let me kind of walk you through why. I mean, I've covered a lot of campaigns, Laura, but not anything like this. You see this dark curtain
No, the
here?
first guy you see in this fucking top hat.
All in front of Don Antonio's Mexican restaurant, and the reason why is because instead of having a traditional watch party, they have decided to essentially have only invited guests. They've kicked out members of the public as well as the press. So what do you see here? The press is left on the sidewalk. It's turned into a bit of a circus atmosphere. And I mean, I've talked to some of his supporters who are floating around talking to the press, and they feel very excited. They think that he's going to make it into the November ballot. But right now, as far as what the campaign is doing, again, very unconventional. They don't have a traditional campaign person talking to press. All we know is that
that's because they're not traditional.
There's some good music, but they're not really talking right now.
Oh my God!
So,
of course, the one supporter you see is this guy right here.
That he has tapped into something.
Red
shoes.
He
is talking about the issues that really frustrate some of the voters,
Top
from
hat.
affordability
He's
to
moving
trying to rebuild, to trying to
take
care of homelessness. And so those are some of the issues that are palatable that he's brought through this unconventional campaign, Laura.
Kyung La, stand by. Thank you so much. Joining me around the table, not outside of an actual campaign headquarters, is political dream team of mine, CNN anchor and chief political correspondent Dana Bash. You've got political commentators David Urban and Kate Bedingfield, and senior politics reporter for Axios, Mark Caputo, also CNN contributor Lulu Garcia Navarro. First of all, I would demand nachos if you have.
I was about to say, where's our
I mean, I at least give me that. Dana, okay, people want to write off Spencer. It's okay, but you brought your mind, and I want to pick that for a second because people have tried to write off Spencer Pratt as a reality TV star. Maybe the word star might be even generous for his role, but here we are, and frankly, his chances are maybe not as slim as people thought initially.
Well, the fact that he's even in the hunt in a very democratic city like Los Angeles, that certainly speaks to that. Look, this is another example, certainly a different flavor right now, of somebody who is tapping into the frustrations of name your place, name your town, name your state, wherever, of people who don't feel like they are listened to by the elected leaders where they live and are frustrated by the cost of living. In this case, it's very specific, the very difficult time that they're having in rebuilding after the fires in Los Angeles, and the cost of housing, even regardless of that. And it goes on and on and on. And he went viral, and he is somebody who is sort of
Shivas, thank you for the 19.
kind of speaking for a lot of people for now. We'll see what happens tonight. And then ultimately, even if he does get to a runoff, the question is, can
AP, oh, what the fuck? Okay. Goodbye.
We mentioned this at the start of the night. The San Francisco Bay Area here was going to produce about 1 out of 5 votes. We said, remember, Becerra, Southern California, LA County base. Steyer, more of a Bay Area base, we suspected. We're in the Bay Area. This is the smallest of the Bay Area counties. But take a look at this. Steyer is running behind Becerra here. Again, this is that vote by mail that came in before Election Day.
Red Mirage,
Republican
though,
leading here.
where
Republicans
there's
don't
going to
typically
be
do
a
well in Napa
later
County, but it does
blue
show,
wave.
look, that Hilton's basically secured 3/4 of the Republican vote right here. But I think that's notable that Becerra is running ahead of Steyer right there. This is a giant
make it to
one.
the general, but
Santa Clara County right here. The city of San Jose is here. Again, we're in the Bay Area. And again, wow.
A lot of
what
Democrats are voting very, very late
10.
this time around.
Javier Becerra with almost a 10-point advantage over Tom Steyer. Again, in what we thought would be a relative strength area for Steyer. Also, by the way, Matt Mahan, he is the mayor of San Jose. This is probably as good as it's going to get for him tonight. He's 11%. He's a distant 5th right there. Really clarifying. Again, the polls were suggesting it had sort of come down to these three. Seeing Mahan running that distantly
Please don't be
in his
the one
home
billionaire
county
that can't
reinforces the sense that the polls were
Bloomberg.
directionally correct, that we may be looking at something between these 3 candidates tonight. And again, Becerra moving up into Northern California. We've seen 2 counties report from that San Francisco Bay Area, both of them giving Becerra an advantage over Steyer. Taking a look going down the coast here to San Luis Obispo County here, 40% of the vote in. Hilton with what kind of separation there? A little bit more than double what Bianco got. That's a combined vote for the Republicans of 45%. And again, that's running north of, Steve Garvey had been the main Republican candidate for the Senate in 2024. In that open primary, he got 36% in this county. So the combined Republican vote is running higher there. We said higher so far in Kings County, higher elsewhere than it did in 2024. We'll see if that holds. That's an interesting thing we're seeing in these results. Becerra with an advantage over Steyer there, not quite as pronounced. Again, going through, we pulled Madera County up on the screen. We'll spend a little bit more time here on this. Hilton, again, more than double over Bianco. Becerra with an advantage over Steyer, a little bit more slight right there. This looks like Placer County we're getting. This is pretty big. You're talking about the Sacramento suburbs. I know it extends all the way there, like to close to like Tahoe and the Nevada line, but most of the population's right there in the Sacramento suburbs here. It's a pretty big piece of real estate. Hilton leading it here on the Republican candidate, 37%. Yeah, kind of tripling Bianco's number right there, and Becerra outpacing Steyer. So Becerra outpacing Steyer pretty much everywhere we're looking. You get up here, this is very remote, small, Northern California right here. This is an interesting test sort of Republican sentiment here, because you are in sort of core
Los
rural,
Angeles
very
needs
small
to
in
come
the scheme of things. Interesting, though, to see Bianco leading Hilton
Steyer.
right there. Zoom out. What does that do to the statewide vote? We've got 6% in right now. Hilton is leading statewide, but what that's added up to for Becerra right off the bat is a 40,000 vote advantage over Steyer, with Bianco sitting all the way back there at 14%. So Hilton running double Bianco's numbers. And again, I think the polling was suggesting something along those lines here. And Hilton, again, he was trying to get that Bianco number. He wants that Bianco number as low as he can. He wants to monopolize that Republican vote. And Becerra, though, I think that That's notable given the areas that we're talking about. I think, these are the two biggest sources of vote that we've gotten so far here. San Bernardino County, and again, this is going to be like 5% of all the vote cast statewide tonight is going to come out of San Bernardino County. About 5% is going to come out of Santa Clara County. Those are the two biggest counties that have reported so far. We took you through some of the others that are also significant, but again, you can see it here in San Bernardino County. Hilton, he would like more separation with Bianco, but again, there's Becerra with an advantage over Steyer. Everywhere we've looked so far in that Democrat on Democrat contest, Becerra's had the advantage over Steyer. You could even look here. These are smaller counties here. Becerra with the advantage. Merced County, this is a
we have
bigger
to see
one
how
here.
LA looks.
And again, Hilton running in first. Becerra, though, with the advantage over Steyer. So we're seeing this in one county after another. Hilton, Bianco, Becerra, Steyer. Steyer's got to start finishing ahead of Becerra in some of these counties. Now, again, Santa Clara, I think if you're Steyer, the worst piece of news you got so far is right there, because that's supposed to be your territory. It's going to have to change from around there.
Explain, this is a Harris plus 40 county, right? I mean, Gavin Newsom won this by 42.
Oh, the San Francisco Bay Area is overwhelmingly Democratic. The city of San Francisco itself, which is coterminous with we got Sacramento. Okay, so this is... sorry about that. Let's go right back in. Again, Sacramento County's huge. This is another 5%er, okay, in terms of the statewide vote. And look at that. Now, they get Democratic here. The Democrats should be doing well, but look at Becerra, 29%. Hilton, the Republican, 28%. Look at the separation there between Becerra and Steyer. I think that's the most significant we've seen so far. And then Chad Bianco running back there at 10%. Boy, if you're Becerra, between what you've seen so far, right here, sorry about that, right here I'm going to get that right, right here out of Santa Clara County, right here out of Sacramento County, and the fact that everywhere else we looked at Placer County, take a look here, in Nevada. I'm just seeing if there's anywhere here where Steyer is running ahead of Becerra in the vote so far, and so far, there isn't. So what that nets out to statewide is we now have close to 10% of all the votes in here in California in this primary. Hilton running in first, again, doubling up. When I say doubling up, close to 28%, 13%. And the name of the game there for Hilton is he wants as much separation as he can because there's an awful lot of Democratic votes still out there. But Becerra, I think the story of the moment in these initial returns is right there. That advantage that Becerra has opened up over Steyer, and I think the key to that advantage, again, it's early, but the key to that advantage is it's not coming from the places that we automatically thought of as being advantage Becerra. In fact, some of it's coming from places that we thought
would be the
might be Steyer.
That's exactly
might be
right.
Steyer.
Okay.
No,
Steve, I'm going to pause you for
y'all, the drama here is not with California flipping red. California is not going to be flipping red, especially after the redistricting. It's what's happening on the Democrat side between Becerra and Steyer. Let's see if this is
That's right.
Okay, that is on an ad. So yeah, I mean, I would say right now it's not great for Tom Steyer and people who voted for Tom Steyer because Becerra is doing very well so far. So the potential two here are either Steve Hilton and Javier Becerra, or Steve Hilton, Tom Steyer, which is not looking good right now, or Becerra and Steyer. So the best option there is Steyer versus Hilton. But there's so many more votes to come, and LA County is a big share in California. So it's very early. But yeah, Steyer is hoping right now that a lot of the last minute votes and day of votes are going to be looking good are for him. So crack a second cold one is what I'm hearing. Yeah. just keep cracking them. I can't believe this Brit came in and stole the state. Our forefathers would be disappointed. Well, maybe not. Maybe they'd be right there supporting it all. Maybe they'd be like, you know what, actually.
Break. Let's go right to Steve Kornacki, because you just said, Steve,
let's hand things over to the Brits again.
We have Orange County.
Yeah, we just got, we had teased this before. 10% of the vote or so comes out of Orange County. Obviously, big, giant county here just south of L.A.
Yep.
We got half the vote. This is that vote by mail that had come by Election Day here in Orange County.
Okay,
you can see here, Steve Hilton, the Republican candidate, one of the Republican candidates at 34%. There's Javier Becerra. We expected he might do better in Southern California than Steyer. And again, it's another county here where Becerra is outpacing Steyer. There's the significance of that. Again, there may only be one spot for a Democrat in the runoff here. So would it be Becerra? Would it be Steyer? Both of them have clearly separated themselves from any other Democratic candidate in this race. And then there's Chad Bianco, the other Republican here, running at 11%. We just got LA mayor. I am told we got. Oh my gosh! Remember I said we would get a gigantic batch.
All right. Remember.
And we just did. So
it's going to look good for Spencer Pratt
about
initially.
40% of the vote, of all the votes that are going to be cast, just got released here. We are talking about vote by mail, again, that arrived by election day.
I think
Some of
things
this might
could
have
turn out
arrived
for
a while
Nithya
ago.
because
That's
of
the
how many
type of
people
vote you're talking
voted
about.
last
There's Karen
minute.
Bass, the incumbent, running at 38%, and there is Spencer Pratt running at 28% right now. That is an 8-point advantage, or a 25,000 vote advantage over Nithya Raman, the third-place candidate right now, Councilor Nithya Raman, the third-place candidate in this race. That's with 40% of the vote. Now, remember how we said we expect things to go the rest of the way.
Remind people
in Los Angeles,
yes.
right? The next thing we think, and what they've communicated, the next thing that would be released here, maybe in one big batch, would be the vote that was cast in person at polling places. And we know from past elections in Los Angeles, like that 2022 mayor's race, that was the most anti-Bass vote that there was, the vote that was cast in person on Election Day. So you would suspect that Pratt might benefit from when the Election Day vote is added in here, that Pratt might benefit, that he might be able to narrow this gap with Bass. Now, there's not a ton of people in the grand scheme of things who vote on Election Day. It's probably like 15% of all the vote, 15% of all the vote in L.A. But if Pratt does do well there, as we've seen with independent and non-Democratic candidates in the past in L.A., he could narrow that margin with Bass. And I think more critically for him, he could add to that pad between himself and Raman. Because remember, the final piece of the puzzle that we won't know tonight, right, is the late arriving vote by mail. And we're talking about probably like a third of the vote in Los Angeles. We're probably not going to be getting until tomorrow and maybe days to come after tomorrow. The mail can still come in after Election Day. And there's
but that depends on then what the split is going to Karen versus going to Nithya.
Late arriving vote by mail is going to be significantly more Democratic friendly than all of the other vote, meaning that would be good news for Bass. Right. That would be good news for Raman. If she's going to come out of tonight behind Pratt, it's a huge if, but if she's going to come out of tonight behind Pratt, well, it's not a huge if at this point, she would then have that opportunity if she's close enough to catch him with that. But that is a 25,000 vote pad there. 8 percentage points that Pratt has managed to build with that vote by mail here. And if he can build that a little bit more with that Election Day vote, when that comes in, that in-person polling place vote, if he's able to expand on that lead, it does take you into territory we start to say, look, even if that late arriving vote is much more Democratic, has he succeeded in building the kind of pad he needs to finish above Raman and to get into a runoff? You would say at this point, Bass. If you're Bass, those are encouraging numbers for you. And I think the Bass folks have wanted to get this. The theory of the case for them is if they get to a runoff and they get to a runoff with Pratt, does political gravity take control in Los Angeles? A Republican, for all the reasons we talked about before, the odds of a Republican winning in a city like Los Angeles, it was 75-25 for Harris. But that, who knows if it comes to that. But again, if you're Pratt, this is, I think, kind of what you wanted to see with this first update here. You've got some real distance between yourself and third place. The next thing you want to see is if you can expand that with what comes next and get yourself in a position where you're not sweating it out in that late arriving vote by mail. And if you're Karen Bass and you're just trying to get to that second round, you're obviously encouraged by what you see right here.
That's right, Steve, because to your point here, Spencer Pratt doesn't need to get more vote than Karen Bass right now. He needs to get more votes than Nithya Raman based on how these boards are laying out. Garrett Hake, I know, has a question for you. What's going on?
Yeah, Steve, does the same day vote, are you saying it's more, the election day vote, does it behave more Republican or more anti-Bass? I ask because 38% is better than she's polled in any polling that I've seen. Do you think the vote we would see coming in that next tranche from election day lifts Pratt and Raman and brings down Bass? Or is this something where these are Republican voters in Los Angeles County who are going to mostly support Spencer Pratt?
Based on the past, it would be more that it's just a Republican vote. This is when Rick Caruso ran as an independent against Bass he registered as a Democrat. It's a complicated thing. But he was sort of the more non-Democratic candidate. He did significantly better, like a net 15 points better with the polling place vote, with the election day vote. For that matter, if you expanded it to Los Angeles County, LA City is not all of Los Angeles County, but the only type of vote in Los Angeles County that Donald Trump outright won in 2024 was the in-person election day vote. He actually got more votes in Los Angeles County than Harris did with that. So that tends to just be a more Republican vote. That would be, if you're Pratt, you're certainly hoping it is, because that's your opportunity to really kind of put the distance in you want to see here.
Also,
Steve,
conservative LA does not equal Republican necessarily.
If you
so
are Tom Steyer and you're sitting and you're watching the results come in,
either they will vote for Republican candidates or more conservative Democrats.
Santa Clara County, a super blue area in Northern California where Steyer would be somewhat expected to do pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, so look, in fact, a lot of those places just came in while we were on LA mayor. So look, first of all, LA City means LA County. So LA County, remember, like a fifth of the vote in the governor's race is going to come out of here. And we just got more than 40% of LA County's vote. Remember, Becerra
is the last
was congressman
minute
from Los
mail-in
Angeles,
and
his
early
political
vote.
base here. And again, that's almost a 56,000 vote margin for Becerra over Steyer. Deeply, deeply blue Los Angeles County. Hilton running in third right there. Chad Bianco back in fourth at 7%. That, on the strength of that, right? Such a gigantic piece of the puzzle is Los Angeles County, in such a big chunk of the vote is that we now see Becerra move into the lead statewide. It's a little disproportionate. LA's kind of punching above its weight in terms of its share of the statewide vote. So Becerra getting that number out of LA County, we said at the start of the night, how's Becerra doing in LA County versus how is Steyer doing in the Bay Area? Because the Bay Area collectively is the same size. We're starting to get a look. We showed you already Santa Clara County where San Jose is. You can see what's happening right there. Becerra with a healthy lead over Steyer. Move to Alameda County here. Again, Becerra, it's narrower. This is probably the best number I've seen so far for Steyer. Steyer is still trailing Becerra, but only by 3 points there. He's at least not losing much ground right there. Contra Costa County here. These are sort of the East Bay suburbs here. That's, again, some significant distance there, close to 15,000 votes between Becerra and Steyer running in third place. Again, there was some thought that this would be an area of particular strength for Steyer. Solano County, Becerra running in first. Hilton, you get back down here, he's outpacing Steyer. We're just seeing this in every county. It looks like we got more out of Napa County. This is the smallest of the Bay Area counties. Becerra continues to lead right there. For that matter, we got high income, high education attainment Marin County here. Again, in the Bay Area.
Steyer,
and now this is right.
No.
This is what I was just going to ask Steve.
But a lot of the Bernie,
friends, I feel like I can ask questions that may sound
a
obvious.
lot of the Bernie coalition is backing
anything
Steyer.
Based on, and I understand it's still early in California with about a third of the vote in there, that Tom Steyer has not been in the top two in the counties that we've seen so far, other than when we just got to Marin there. I mean, how much should we be putting into that? Understanding, obviously, that things are going to shift as we start to get that mail-in vote in.
No, I think it's very significant what's happened right here, and I think the pattern is very clear because again, we've been showing you county by county as it comes in. As a matter of fact, we just got we've got Stanislaus here. This is
Angela at second place.
And look again, Becerra running well ahead of Steyer here. I think this is significant. I think the pattern is clear with this vote by mail. Now, it means two things if you're Steyer. Number one, are things going to turn around for you with the in-person vote? Is there some reason to think that Steyer is going to do better with the folks who went out and voted today or who cast ballots in the early voting, period in California? Is there going to be some kind of reversal there? He would need something like that. Or perhaps more realistically, what Steyer would then need to start thinking about is not the distance between himself and Becerra, but the distance between himself and Steve Hilton. And you can see here, Becerra's margin
District
over Hilton is
11,
not huge right now. It's 23,000 votes.
Nancy Pelosi
and
retired.
It just shifted, opened up to what did we got? Oh, we got Riverside. Let me just show you this because I'll return to that thought. But we just got Riverside County, Chad Bianco's home county. Okay, he's the sheriff here. Okay, this is a big piece of the puzzle. 5% of the vote comes out of Riverside County. We got half of it right there. Bianco leading in his home county. You know, and again, if you're Hilton, boy, that's 66,000 votes you'd love to have, or some chunk of that. But again, Becerra in second here, Steyer languishing in a distant fourth right there. And again, what that does to the statewide count.
No one cares about Riverside.
Again,
who cares,
generally
Steve?
Republican friendly. There was not a great county for Becerra, so Hilton's running 22,000 behind statewide. He's running 175,000 votes. Hilton is ahead of Steyer. And the other theory I was saying there, the other thought. If you're Steyer right now and you're looking at this is not necessarily can I make it up with the election day vote. Can I make it up with the late arriving vote by mail? Because, again, we tell you the past on this is we've seen so many elections in California,
far with
particularly
total
House
reported
elections, that flip
for
over
the governor's
from the Republicans
race,
to the Democrats
it is Becerra,
in the days
Hilton,
and weeks
Steyer.
that follow the election because that late arriving vote by mail tends to be so Democratic. And the indications we've been seeing in the partisan patterns of the returned ballots in California has been strongly suggestive that that's going to happen again, that it's going to be much more Democratic-friendly vote as they start counting tomorrow, the day after, things like that. So that's the other question for Steyer is, could he get in range of Hilton enough where if it's just a much more Democratic vote,
right? So it might end up being that he has to try to boot out Hilton.
They're Democratic votes that allow him to catch Hilton for second place. But if you're Becerra, you're feeling very good about what you're seeing with these numbers right now. Because, again, the thing that I'd key in right there is just that's the Becerra shade of like navy blue right there.
Yep.
And that's in what we thought of as potentially
if
being
Javier wins, I'm sorry to say Steve Hilton is winning. No.
It's a huge, population-dense, overwhelmingly Democratic area of the state. And in every one of those counties, he is outpacing Steyer. Meanwhile, in his home county there in Los Angeles County, he's also getting money. He might want to be ahead a little bit more than this in Los Angeles County, honestly, in all things being equal. But any disappointment in that is more than offset at this moment by what's happening right there in the Bay Area. Did we just get? Oh, okay. See, that city of San Francisco is so small. That's also San Francisco County. We don't have that. I wanted to see if we got San Francisco County because it also means we start getting these. We have.
Who we fucking with in California for governor?
Can I ask about one of those House races? And I'll just say, in conversations with those close to Tom Steyer, they have reason to believe they think that some of those late
billionaire Tom
breakers,
Steyer,
Steve, will
in fact
be favorable to them. We'll see how that shakes out. You mentioned Riverside County's in. There's a Republican on Republican member primary in that area.
Hey, Chad, who we fucking
California
with?
40. Yep. That's gotten just oof. Now, I mean, this is a redistricted area, right?
It's a technical term.
It's gotten nasty. I mean, it has. It's like one that we're watching. Yep. Do we have any sense of how that's going right now for Ken Calvert and Young Kim?
It is. Ken Calvert, Young Kim, and look at this. We got half the vote in right here. And Calvert, right, now the division here is Calvert is from the Riverside portion of the district. And you see he's clobbering Kim right there by 26 points. Then you go over, Kim is from the sort of the inland Orange County portion of the district.
Nothing from District 11 has come in that I've seen.
Right now with half the vote in right there. So Ken Calvert, a 30-plus year incumbent. If you looked at each of their old districts and how much of this new district it made up.
Did Becerra run ads?
A little bit more of it is
but
Calvert
actually Tom Steyer ran the most expensive ad campaign
in with the clear advantage here. So I think the question
California
now for
governor
Kim
race history.
Becomes, can you hold on
he
to
spent the GDP
here?
of a small country. He spent over $200 million.
You would then advance to the general election, and you would have a district where there's two Democrats, a very Republican district, but there'd be two Republicans running, and there'd be a lot of Democratic voters on the sidelines who then get to decide the race.
Spend a lot of money.
And there's some school of thought here that Young Kim would be more appealing if it's a two Republican general election, that Kim would be more appealing to those voters than Calvert would. And so that if she can get into that runoff and not get buried too much here, she could have a chance of winning them over there. Realistically, seeing her with this much vote in, trailing in her home county like that, that's probably what she's got to be thinking
Kamala's
about
got to
right
get ready to
Hold
run
on
for
to that
president
second place
again.
position in that district.
She's
Super
gathering her
interesting one
coconut
here,
trees.
Steve, I'm going to let you see what else is lighting up the board. Yell early and often. I'm staring at you, buddy. I'm not kidding. I'm looking at you directly, even as I'm having this conversation with Ryan and Garrett. We're also joined here by Matt Gorman, a Republican strategist and NBC News contributor, along with Ashley Etienne, former communications director for Vice President Harris.
Where are you seeing numbers on District 11? I don't see. I'm checking New York Times. I don't see. Hold on. Decision Desk headquarters. Okay. Let's see. District 11 primary results. Okay. NBC News isn't reporting anything either. Well, we're watching. Glad Adam Hamami won. Yeah, that was a good W. Okay, let's see. California U.S. House 11. Scott Wiener. Scott Wiener, Connie Chan, Saikat Chakrabarti with 37.27% in. Damn. Wiener's laying it down. Tom Sawyer should have just been financier for a better candidate, but alas, ego, I guess. I mean, I guess. Okay, this is. Oh, never mind. Create a full account, free account. No, thank you. I don't think I shall.
Among Democratic voters, that they're really pissed at how the state and the city have been run. And so you can see this now in the polls. So the Democrats are both of those guys are going to have to be sweating it out for the rest of the night when they shouldn't be.
And I was struck by that voter that Liz Koritz interviewed, Garrett and Ryan, who said,
Scott
I want
Wiener's
authenticity.
real bad.
I want somebody who I think has my back.
But it's not like he gives a Saikat and his.
I'm not down with either party. I'm kind of more independent, but that's what he's looking for. I got to say, Steve, I got to go to you, my friend.
Yeah, we just
You're
got
muttering to yourself in a really intense way.
I was trying to tell them. I was trying to fly the control because we've been hyping this. Here it is. We just got same-day vote out of the city of Los Angeles, and it's exactly what we were saying might happen. The same-day vote is favoring Spencer Pratt. Look at what just happened. He's moved now within 22,000 votes of Bass. A 6,000 vote gap here between a 6-point gap now only between Bass and Pratt.
And this is kind of what you thought would happen, right, Steve?
This is the same-day vote. We typically see this be a Republican-friendly vote, and it came out here for Pratt, and it's moved him closer, and I think more critically for Pratt. Look at this. He is now double digits ahead of Nithya Raman in second place. He is closer, significantly closer to Bass for first place right now than he is to Raman for third place in this race here. So that's, again, that's a significant development that just came out there. It took us up from just under 40% to 45%. The same-day vote is not nearly as big as the vote by mail. The other thing that we're kind of waiting on now before we get to those late arriving mail ballots is also the vote that was cast in person at polling places before Election Day. It's not a huge sum, but it's a bit of a wild card. We don't quite know what to expect with that. But if that was another boost like this for Pratt, then Pratt would be breathing right down Bass's neck and way ahead of Raman. If we talk about him having a pad right there, he just took a very big step in that direction.
God,
so excited,
people love the racist AI ads. They love them. They love them.
Couldn't figure out
how deep can you get into that, Steve? Like, in other words, can you tell us where in LA Spencer Pratt's support is coming from? Same with Karen Bass here and what that means.
I wish we could. Unfortunately, we just, that's the thing about California. We give you the numbers, and in 2 days, I can give you a great breakdown of where it came from.
We'll be on the air for 48 hours. Don't test us. Steve, go ahead, Brian.
So fascinating is the Pratt thing was just a wild card, right? We really had no idea. I mean, it was really an internet sensation. There were a lot of people in California. I had friends in California that didn't know he was running for governor or mayor. They were mad that he wasn't in the governor's debate because they just knew he was running for something. But a lot of times, an internet sensation doesn't necessarily translate into votes, and it appears that's
Resistance
what's happening.
Radio GB, thank you for the raid.
I love this producer, and I love it. He said, "Is Spencer Pratt? Was he really a reality star? Is that fair?" Yes.
Yes,
this man is
somebody suggesting
a villain. I'm saying among millennials, people knew Spencer Pratt well before this race.
Hang on, can I pull back on this a little bit, because this is something that's driven me crazy about this race. When you look at the numbers, already right now, a majority of Los Angelinos are saying they want to fire Karen Bass. 50% of the voters that are up right now say they want somebody other than the incumbent to be the mayor.
Love the debate
so
over him as a
Spencer Pratt
star.
thing, to me, isn't even really about Spencer Pratt.
Yes, this is the blue wave.
It's a vote sink for people who are fed up with the way that city's been run, or fed up with the fire response. And if this were any other city outside of California,
they weren't excited by anyone else.
Primaries, Karen Bass with those numbers would be toast.
Hang tight. Steve, let me come to you because I know we're getting some more numbers in on some of these critical California House races, right?
Yeah, take a look here. We've got a projection here, too. This is the 13th district here. Democrat Adam Gray won a very, very narrow race in 2024. This got more Democratic, this district did, in redistricting. How much more Democratic? Well, it basically drew it even. It had been a Trump district here. The dynamic now is who is going to be that Republican candidate to go against Gray. Kevin Lincoln right now leading by 10 points here.
So I got to say, Chad, California is crazy.
The significance for Lincoln is he is backed by Trump.
We're just surrounded
by
Chads,
here
Mike.
Is what's not come in yet, San Joaquin County, this is where Stockton, California is, and that's the big change that Democrats made to this district to make it much more Democratic. They added a chunk of Stockton, a very Democratic city here, to fortify Gray. That's also where Kevin Lincoln has been the mayor.
Everyone thinks of Los Angeles and San Francisco as like these
Kevin Lincoln right now with Trump's backing,
very
holding on to that
hubs.
second, has some distance there for that second place position here, but this is going to be one of those elections that's going to be very, very closely watched this November. So is this one.
Yeah, right.
22nd district with David Valadao. And again, Valadao, you know, the lone
Pittsburgh
Republican
and Philly
here,
are so much more left
clearly
wing
getting
than LA and
first place.
SF.
But a couple things here to note. Villegas, Baines, his two opponents here, close
it's very
in that
sad
race,
to be living here in California.
You know, again,
and
Villegas running to the left here, again, one of those sort of lefty
progressive
insurgent
surges in
candidates
other areas
here.
of the
The
country.
other thing to keep an eye on when all of the votes are counted here, what is Valadao's percentage going to be here? Because this is a top two primary. Everyone's, in theory, is voting here. They're going to vote again in November, but Valadao's the only Republican on the ballot. He's running at 43.7%.
Like Karen Bass,
he's going to have to get over 50% in November.
She fucking
if he's
sucks.
going to get reelected.
So that's how people turn around
as
and
it comes
learn nothing
in tonight,
from Trump and go,
what that ends up looking
Spencer
like.
Pratt.
We have nothing yet
That's
from
the
the
change
11th
we need.
district. We had showed you the 48th district here. Again, this is the
fucking jungle primary is absolute garbage. The fact that we're one of only 2 states that does this.
Jim Desmond here, likely to be the top vote-getting Republican. This was Darrell Issa's district, redrawn by Democrats, very aggressively redrawn by Democrats. Monty Von Wilpert, a councilwoman from San Diego County, notably here, look at this, we don't have any votes yet from San Diego County. What we're getting here is Riverside County. So for Von Wilpert, that's good news just in terms of getting into second place here, trying to get that November matchup. So those are some of the House races we're looking at here.
Steve, I'm going to come back to you in a second on California 22, the Valadao race, because I want to talk about the Dems in that race. But let me first get a vibe check, if you will, with Liz Kreutz, who's in L.A. And Liz, I think you have ping-ponged your way back to this gathering for Spencer Pratt, right? Talk us through it.
I have, and as I've returned, it's a much more lively vibe and in very LA fashion.
Look at this guy now behind her.
Overhead. He's having his party
the worst
at a Mexican
characters in Los
restaurant that he has loved
Angeles.
for years. And there's some Spencer Pratt supporters here who seem in a very good mood. You guys have
Instagram Patriot Wildman.
You guys have probably
There's a guy
seen
like
the
that
latest
on
batch of
every
polling that
corner
just
in
came out.
Hollywood.
Shows him doing pretty well in second place, just 10 points behind Karen Bass. How are you feeling about that? Do you feel really confident that he's going to make it to the runoff?
Definitely, he's going to make it to the runoff. There's a lot of people who already voted for him. Their votes haven't been counted yet. They voted day of the election, old school style. So I think his numbers are going to get better.
What is it about Spencer Pratt that you just is resonating with you?
Because he's speaking out against communism and socialism, and it is a real big problem in our cities, especially in LA, where it's turned to crap. It's not an accident. They're doing it by design. Karen Bass
Oh my
wants
God,
to
I
destroy
wish
our
we
city,
had.
and it's nice
I
to
wish
see someone
we
like
had
Spencer
it.
Pratt.
I can simplify it because those buzzwords are like they melt the brains of like left.
Karen, the concept of Karen Bass is a communist.
He doesn't want a human feces to be a part of your life. Yeah. He doesn't want homeless children outside.
Totally.
Homeless
Thank
people
you.
Outside. Oh,
We
you
have-
didn't
no.
like that.
We have-
you ran away.
We have
He doesn't want homeless
Okay,
people outside of
we
the elementary
appreciate
schools
you.
having
Can I get a
sex
shout out real quick?
with their
We
own
appreciate
hands
you.
in front of the children.
We appreciate
No,
you.
dude,
We
that's
talked a lot
you.
about
That's
the homeless.
you.
Thank you.
That's that
All
guy.
right.
That's that fucking guy.
Don't
Liz,
appreciate you, ma'am.
I got it. Thank
Oh
you for
my
navigating
God.
that so well.
When I tell you some of the worst people live in Los Angeles, some of the worst fucking people.
Staff of Spencer, she's incredible.
Thank you. Okay, Hallie, all I will say is that clearly they're taking a few shots. They're feeling good out
The
here.
margaritas are flowing there at Don Antonio's. Perhaps, I don't know
Oh my
for
God,
sure.
get away from this reporter.
Liz,
Get
thank
away
you.
from her.
Hey, stay
Get
close, because
away
obviously
from
we want to
her.
talk more about Spencer Pratt. We want to talk about Nancy Rahman. We want to talk about Karen Bass.
Children behave better than these fools.
Let me see if Steve has anything he wants to jump in on here. Anything else coming in, Steve?
Oh my God, they want to be Florida people so badly. Go to Florida, please.
In this LA mayor's race in terms of
sorry
the
to
remaining
people who
vote,
live in
because it's a
Florida.
little bit different
I won't
than
send
they've done
them
it in
there.
the past, and this is
Can
what
we
LA
send them
County
somewhere
is
else?
now telling us. So again, seeing what's in with 45%, I've got it on my phone here. I'm
God,
going to read
of
it to you.
course Spencer Pratt has the shittiest
come on.
fucking
so
voters.
It's 11:45 Eastern right now. Sometime starting at about midnight Eastern in that next hour, they're not saying exactly when.
Okay. What a great representative.
I should back up. Bear with me here. I first want to say,
of his
remember
whole
that
campaign.
Pratt got closer to Bass with that last update. And we said we think that is vote that was cast in person on Election Day. So it's actually a different type of in-person vote. That was
The
vote
concept
that
of
brought
Los
Pratt
Angeles
closer to
being
within 6
ruined by
points
communism
was
and
the
socialism.
in-person early vote. Okay, it all gets categorized. It's technical, but it all gets categorized as polling
Karen
place
Bass, who
vote. But that
cannot
was
stop
actually
giving
the
more
in-person
money to the
early
police.
vote. We have not yet seen tabulated and reported out the vote that was cast at polling places today. And again, I say that's significant because we had that discussion. Literally, the vote that's cast in person at polling places on Election Day.
Those are the types of guys.
Has been the most Republican-friendly vote in Los Angeles.
I'll wait.
We don't have that yet. What Pratt made that jump with was the in-person early vote. So keep that in mind. He was able to get closer with that. Now, we think starting sometime after midnight, in that midnight to 1 a.m. hour, what they are going to release, they say they will have some more vote by mail that was received prior to Election Day. Okay, so remember, that was what we first saw. That was that first giant chunk. That should be more Bass-friendly, though we did see Pratt leading Rahman in that. Keep that in mind. Then, sometime after 1 a.m. Eastern, okay, 10 p.m. local in L.A., they say they will then report out the in-person Election Day vote.
Okay.
And that's where we expect Pratt to make another jump relative to Bass. And then after that, we're just living on the periodic updates of vote by mail from there. So Pratt's, again, if form holds from the past, Pratt's got another big jump in him here when that in-person same-day vote gets reported out, which, again, may be a while, but keep that in mind as you see this margin between him and Bass and him and Rahman.
Super interesting. Can I go to another race? I know we're all California, and I want to live in that with you, but I've got to ask you about this. What appears to be an unexpected situation that has developed in the state of Iowa in that Republican primary there. Let me bring this up. Randy Feenstra, Zach Lane. Can you go to Iowa, Steve, here? Yep. We have said that this is too close to call. Remember, Randy Feenstra, Trump-backed candidate, up against Zach Lane, who has some support from sort of the MAHA groups in and around Iowa. He's a farmer.
Feenstra lost. Wow.
Feenstra has conceded. Now, we haven't called the race. It appears Feenstra has conceded in a video that's been posted.
Bad for Trump.
Maine, and conceded this race up against a
bad for Trump,
Democratic
but
governor
Spencer
in Iowa.
Pratt,
This is
good for
interesting,
Trump.
Steve.
Yeah, and remember, what happened here, we can show you, is we were talking about this, if you remember before California, we said Davenport, Scott County, this was sort of the last gasp for Feenstra. He needed a big margin there, probably something around 1,500, 2,000. He needed to blow out Lane here. Less than 500 votes, a 456 vote plurality for him there. That was his last gasp. That was the only kind of big remaining piece of real estate. Didn't get nearly what he needed. You see, there's just a very small county here that's outstanding. So just based on this vote, you know, it's significant. That's a significant margin with no county that's unaccounted for right here. And again, with that 35% rule. So this is a Trump-backed. Now,
that's right.
Keep this in mind. This is a Trump-backed candidate. At the
Would he
time
come
of
rally
Trump
for Pratt?
endorsement,
I don't know.
There had been more than 10,000 early votes that had already been cast. So did the Trump endorsement
because it wouldn't really
come too late when a margin is this close and his endorsement didn't come till the Friday?
For the MAGA folk who are supporting Trump because he reminds them of Trump and because Trump has been like, yeah, I really like that guy, and Spencer Pratt is like, I'm Trump. Trump rallying would not do anything additional, but for the ones who are like, I didn't support Donald Trump, but I fucking hate Karen Bass, and I'm sick and tired of seeing these drug addicts homeless on the streets, Trump rallying with Spencer Pratt would not be good for that crowd.
Woodbury County, where Sioux City is, but
now,
he should be
it's not that they would not vote for Spencer Pratt still,
right?
but
they're all equal-sized population, but the 4th district's where the Republicans live in
Iowa.
Yeah. So in a Republican primary, it's more than a quarter.
Anyway, I was going to say the one guy, the Spencer Pratt supporter, who was not the one guy, the multiple guys who were drunk on camera. Those are the kind of guys who will probably have 7 more vodkas, and then will be so drunk that they piss in the alley. Same guys who are talking about having to step over some dude who's having sex with his hand in the park next to children. Those are the kinds of guys who will just go around the corner and drunkenly piss on the side of a building.
Kind of what he wants here. He certainly got first place here. The gap here, about 6,000 votes over Becerra.
Yeah, they're the kinds of people they're talking about.
Trend holds there between them. Steyer can squeeze more out of here. That's not quite half the vote.
And then go drive their cars and then crash into the side of, David Dobrik's pizza restaurant.
San Diego County. And remember, this is like 10% of the vote in the state. So we just got, again, all that pre-election vote by mail in here. And Hilton leading on the Republican side, but there it is. Becerra with that, it's more than a 30,000 vote advantage over Steyer for second place. Bianco getting buried. Just dwell on that for a second. We said great news, not great. We said good news for Steyer out of San Francisco. He's running in first. He's finally running in first over Becerra in a sizable county, a margin of 5,900 votes. But again, what we just saw come in moments later in San Diego County. It's a margin of 31,000 votes, 5 times that size. Becerra wiped it out like times 5, just with what came in there in San Diego County. So again, you sort of, now we're getting close to half the vote that's tabulated in this thing statewide. That's some real separation right there. That's a 240,000 vote gap there, 242,000 vote nearly gap between Becerra and Steyer. Again, Becerra much closer to Hilton here than Steyer is to Becerra. And there's Bianco running back at 11%. Remember, we said, Hilton wanted to get as much distance as he could, 26.5 down to 11% there. Again, 436,000 votes for Bianco. So really, it's clarifying here. I think the picture's clarifying. The only other place here I see that Steyer blue, this is Santa Barbara County. This is decent size, but we've seen some much bigger ones. But you take a look here in a place like Kern County. It is a big Republican area here. Hilton in first here. It's close between Becerra and Steyer. There aren't a ton of Democratic votes right there. But just kind of work our way through here. Tulare. I just want to see if there's Fresno County. I don't think we'd shown yet. Becerra with an advantage there. He's finishing.
California's not turning red, but it's not turning progressive.
As we kind of work our way, through the San Joaquin Valley right here, it's all Becerra over Steyer. So he's been able to build a very significant lead there. And really, what it would rest on for Steyer, it's starting to look like what it'll rest on here. You said, do they feel that the same day vote will be different for them? We do have some of that, as we said, some of that early vote is now in Los Angeles. This looks like it did with that vote by mail. It doesn't look like that gap between Becerra.
I don't know how you live in California as a working class person struggling to survive, go out and vote for Becerra.
So there'd have to be either some change with that polling place vote, or
that's the establishment power.
Such a flood of Democratic ballots coming in after, being tabulated after election night or into the wee hours this morning that would just lift both Democrats over Hilton. That's increasingly what it needs to be for Steyer.
We just got that San Francisco vote in, Steve, right? Can you go back there and tell us if it says anything about another interesting House race there? Not a contested one from a Republican-Democrat perspective, but inside the Democratic Party, Nancy Pelosi's seat. Yeah, it does. So here you go, 40% of the vote. This is the 11th Congressional District, Pelosi retiring, first elected in 1987. And you can see here, this is pretty significant. So Scott Wiener is a state senator. He was expected to do quite well here. He was expected, frankly, to finish first. And the question has been who would get second place here. So you see Wiener, I think, performing as he expected he would. Connie Chan is the candidate who was endorsed by Nancy Pelosi. Pelosi came in sort of at the end of the campaign, or toward the end of the campaign here, and got behind Chan. And Chakrabarty is the former chief of staff to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
So this has been closely watched in terms of, again, it's one
all
of the most
corrupt,
liberal
girl.
Democratic congressional districts in America. Could that brand of sort of progressivism, how would that do out here? Of course, these other candidates have their own sort of progressive credentials as well.
Right.
But with 40% of the vote right there, Weiner performing as expected. Pelosi's preferred successor running in second place right now. AOC's former chief of staff, that's a very disappointing number for him. Something would have to dramatically change.
He didn't get the
again,
endorsement.
With that election day vote. Didn't get her endorsement. Correct, right. You got a lot of others on the left, yeah.
Other members of the squad, but not from AOC.
The one who knew him best.
But he also spent millions of dollars of his own money on this race, and so far it's
Nancy Pelosi is fucking fuming right now.
And to your point, Steve, that Scott Weiner number, as expected.
I mean, happy about Connie Chan, but looking at these Scott Weiner numbers,
but an interesting one when you look at this battle.
She's plotting
we keep saying it because it's really part of the storyline here. The fight for the soul of the Democratic Party, and what's so interesting to see in the state of California. What kind of
also, y'all, nothing is
Democrats
over.
want to put forward?
I have to keep reminding y'all that California,
as they are looking to take back
California
the House
is a
and possibly
very,
take
very
back the
late
Senate as well. Ashley, let me
election
very
state.
quickly
So,
on this while Steve takes a look at some of the numbers that are coming in.
No, I was just
especially
saying earlier,
with close
the interesting
races,
thing about
it can
Chan,
take
it can take
weeks.
Pelosi is the best vote counter in in history,
and
this, clearly got this one wrong
election,
in her own district. I mean, I'm pretty shocked by that. But I wouldn't look to California
this primary
to determine sort of
there
what's
was
the profile
a
of Democrats
ton
to win
of last minute
I would actually
voting.
look at Iowa. In fact, I mean,
So
if you
we're
look
going
at what
to
Sam's
get
doing
a
and how he's
big
positioning
dump.
himself, he's sort of, running counter to the Democratic brand.
That is going
talking about
to be
corruption and
that is
and
going to be a
fraud. He's
blue
leaning
dump,
into
but it's just a
values,
matter
not
of how that blue
ideology,
dump,
I think, which is different. It's going after affordability and is
how that blue
aggressively
dump splits
targeting
up.
independent voters. I think that is going to be the formula to win these competitive seats moving forward, not necessarily looking at California. And that's it, to our point last week about Tallarico. That's exactly how he's also running and positioning himself. So I think that's a formula on how you win these red states in competitive districts.
We've heard it even tonight in some of these acceptance speeches from Democrats. Affordability, affordability, affordability. Hey, Steve, I promised I would come back to you on the Valadeo District 22 in California. Can we, unless you're digging in on something else, can we go there? Because it looks as though we are now projecting that, of course, as we said, David Valadeo will be one of the winners here, setting up this fight between Randy Villegas and Jasmeet Bains.
Yeah.
How do we get California progressive? Well, we got to destroy the establishment machine here.
Jasmeet Bains leading here by just over 1,000 votes. I'm just seeing where the vote is. This is Villegas' base, Tulare County. He's a local elected official here. So
and get rid of jungle primaries.
With only 39% of the vote counted. This is where Baines' base would be. She's running a little bit ahead of him here. I'm seeing these for the first time too, so I'm trying to process. Kings County, look at that big margin there for Villegas. Fresno County, they're basically about half the vote. They're basically running even. This is inconsequential almost. Well, it could be if it's very close. But this is interesting because, again, Villegas is the candidate sort of the left here. Jasmeet Bains is the candidate of the DCCC right here. And those are, especially when you consider, we don't have a ton of vote even in there yet. We still have some vote here where Villegas is running up the score. How much is left here? We got still about half the vote.
Okay.
Yeah, Baines is going to need, I think is going to need something
so far
bigger
Marissa Roy's doing well in the LA City Attorney race, which is good.
Villegas. This is potentially a significant development.
And Hallie, I think this race is interesting for Democrats because there's definitely a disconnect in Washington as to who the preferred candidate is here. As Steve points out, that D-Trip would prefer Jasmeet Bains, but Villegas is Latino. Latino voters are going to be so crucial to Democrats' hopes of winning back the majority.
Mejia is
so the
also
Congressional
doing well.
Hispanic Caucus would really prefer to see him as the nominee.
He has made the case that he is the best candidate to win over working class voters in that district. Ryan, Garrett, thank you. We're going to sneak in, again, world's second quickest break. I promise, because we still have numbers coming in at the big board for Steve Kornacki right as we get close to the top of the hour. More results on the other side. Stay with us.
You see Steve Hilton, one of the Republicans, the top performing Republican, actually running in first place right now. Chad Bianco,
Happy Pride
the other
Month,
main
everyone.
Republican, a
George
distant
Santos
fourth.
doing
The
more
question
schemes
is
and
that a
fraud.
distant enough fourth for Hilton? Because we're getting to the point now where we have largely seen in these counties, just about all these counties, that big pre-election day vote by mail release. That's getting us to, almost all the counties filled in, almost half the vote. Now, we still have, as we say, there's that same day vote that's getting added in other places here, so this is going to tick up. But the upshot of it is this. How many total votes have been cast? Look, over 1 million for Hilton, over 1 million for Becerra. That's over 2 million. You know, you're looking at nearly about 4 million votes right now with not quite half the vote in, meaning there are still 4 million votes to be counted in California, and a very significant chunk of those are going to be late arriving vote by mail that are going to be tabulated, you know, maybe tomorrow, maybe in the coming days, maybe over the next week, whatever exactly it is. But that size of a pool, okay, we're talking millions of votes right here. When you see the advantage right now that Hilton has over Steyer, not Becerra, that Hilton has over Steyer, okay, you're talking about a 300,000 vote advantage, okay, 7 points. But in a pool of millions of votes, late arriving vote by mail, if it's dramatically more Democratic, which we've seen in the past, 300,000 votes is something that Steyer could overcome, and he could potentially pass Hilton. That would mean Becerra and Steyer would pass Hilton here, because it would just be overwhelmingly Democratic vote. It would benefit both of them, and that Republican share for Hilton would just tick down. So Hilton's put himself in a decent position right here. He's running in first because he's consolidated a lot of that Republican vote, but he hasn't consolidated. Again, he was putting out a very urgent call in the final days of this campaign, telling Bianco's supporters, look, I like the guy, you like the guy. We all want a Republican in the general election. You got to get behind me. Some of them, I think, clearly, when you see that separation, did heed that call here for Hilton. I think this is a larger gap than we saw in a lot of polling. But again, the question is, did enough of them? Sitting there, Bianco.
Okay, obviously, California has always been reliably a Democratic stronghold, right? It's one of the big three blue strongholds. But there are a lot of conservatives, because there are conservatives across the country. And because of how big of a state California is, the most populous state in the nation, they actually have the largest number of registered Republicans, but California is still overall blue. But yeah, so there's a lot of rural areas of California, which of course is going to be heavily conservative. Historical migration to the state. So events like the gold rush, all of the migration out to the west, all the frontier shit. It's got a lot of ranching and agricultural roots. So yeah, having to do with like a difference in culture, a difference in it's a product of history and geography and economy and demography, and yeah, there's a lot of reasons, but I think people think California is filled with liberals and leftists and forget how big of a state California is.
If you're a Democrat, if you're Hilton, you're feeling you've done some really good things right here. You've gotten some real separation from Bianco. You've gotten some good numbers in these counties. But boy, you've seen Republicans, have pretty good
Dust
election
Bowl
nights
brought a lot of
in
Okies
California,
to Bakersfield,
only to have terrible days, weeks after in that vote by mail. So I think that's the question here. What is that gap between Steyer and Hilton at the end of the night, and how much of that vote by mail, late vote by mail, Democratic vote is left?
Can I ask you on the House side of things, some of these battlegrounds, there's really three big ones that we're watching in the state of California. We just talked through the one in the Central Valley. We just talked through the one around Fresno. What about the one in San Diego, where Jim Desmond, the Trump-backed candidate, is going up against two Democrats? Are we seeing anything new on that front, Steve, in any of these battlegrounds?
So we did here in this.
Also, because of how California's political system shakes up, a lot of counties, conservatives were still able to maintain control even as overall the electorate shifted more blue. So this redistricting that Gavin Newsom led in response to Texas Republicans redrawing the lines in Texas, this is it's a big asset to the Democrats, because now there's only 4 districts in California that are very, very conservative. So the Republicans get those ones. There are 4 that are a toss-up, and then the rest are now reliably
They set up
blue.
these districts for somebody like the Democrat coming out of this, like if it's Von Wolpert or Campanehar to do this. But again, it's a Harris 3 seat, but the road to the majority goes through places like that. It goes through places like Adam Gray's seat and some of these other we've been talking about. And look, David Valadao, he doesn't have 9 lives. He has 29 lives.
It's incredible.
It's been
6 terms, right?
Exactly. And the only time he lost was in 2018, very, very narrowly to a guy named T.J. Cox, who was later indicted and went to, just actually reported to prison about a week ago. So he won't be running. But Valadao is somebody who has 9 lives in this district, and so they need a very strong candidate. And the NRCC is very excited to see Villegas, who's the more progressive AOC, Bernie Sanders-backed candidate, over Baines.
Valadao is the last Republican who voted to impeach
stole that
Trump
from
in
me.
the House.
I wanted to say
We were
that.
all there, man. It still counts.
You gotta finish the sentence, though.
The more important thing with Valadao is that he voted for the big, beautiful bill, which had drastic cuts to Medicare, biggest cuts in our nation's history. And that district is the most dependent on Medicaid of any of the districts in the country. So Democrats are feeling really good about it. The other thing I noticed, too, if you look at turnout is higher for Democrats than it is for Republican in Valadao's district. So he's incredibly vulnerable. I think that is one that Democrats in the DCCC feel very positive about and are going to keep dumping a lot of money.
Just to finish that sentence, though, so if people don't, you talk about Villegas, you talk about David Valadao, the only currently sitting member of Congress who is running for re-election.
Current House member.
Correct. Current House member who voted to impeach President Trump after January 6th.
And President Trump largely silent about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Just got back from seeing backrooms.
A number,
there's a
long line
That's great.
of members of Congress who are no longer members of Congress or are on their way out of Congress because of the decisions they made shortly after January 6th. For whatever reason, Valadao has escaped the wrath of Donald Trump and could potentially still be in Congress after all of this, depending on how this race goes.
Some of you may have noticed our eagle-eyed viewers.
Yeah, I'd go back to the back rooms. You know
emerged
what? Put me in the back
A
rooms.
very quick break to eat them, and we'll be right back. Fueled up
Put
on
me in
other
the back
side, too.
rooms. You shake a salad? Mm-mm. All right. We'll watch a little bit more.
Or something unusual.
And then
it's been pretty clear since the beginning of the year. Democrats had energy and were hopeful in Iowa. It's more clear now. Doesn't mean they're going to win a thing, but that Iowa is an interesting place to watch this midterm year, in part because they have a strong candidate, Rob Sand, their auditor, at the top of the ticket for governor. Again, Zach Lane. It's a bit of a surprise in the sense that Randy Feenstra was endorsed by the president. Zach Lane is on top here. Randy Feenstra has conceded this race. Again, Iowa governor, Iowa has a Senate race. Iowa has a couple of competitive House races. So there are just some states out there that have a little bit of everything. When you got a governor's race, a Senate race, a couple of House races, makes it fascinating for a guy like me because of the regional pieces of all that. I'm going to use at that point just to come back one more time. Just because I'm stubborn, to check again, 47%. So there's where we are. That's where it's been stuck for a while. I can't promise you it's going to change in a dramatic way in the next few minutes. So I'm going to say thanks for all of your time tonight. I hope we do this again down the road. Not sure exactly when that will be. Really grateful for the questions. Very smart questions.
What is going on with the Becerra bots?
Again, we will do that again. So thank you for your time. Have a fantastic night.
Oh, are they done? They're like, you know what? We're fucking out. Good night. I am tired of politics and I am going to bed, he said. Yeah, wait, so what? The money got behind Becerra, but do you think it will be when he's up against a GOP monster in the general? Yeah, Becerra will beat Steve Hilton in a general. So just to kind of recap, there's still a lot of late vote that's to come in, and that is always good for Democrats. In the mayoral race, we're looking at that being the best bet for Nithya Raman to try and overtake Spencer Pratt. But Karen Bass is also going to be getting a share of those votes. So either it's going to help Nithya surpass Spencer, which right now she's 10%, she's 10 points behind, or it's going to increase Karen's lead, or both, but it would end up Nithya coming in third place because of not enough of day of vote, and then early vote that's being tabulated is going her direction. My greatest fear is that the bots online aren't actual bots, but human beings who actually think like that. I don't know. Some of them do really seem to be bots. Like the exact same thing being posted. Are either Becerra or Steyer pro-Palestinian? Steyer is better on Israel and Palestine than Becerra is, but he needs to do some work on that issue, but still better than Becerra. A lot of the internet is bots. This is true, which makes it an increasingly depressing place to be.
Clarity that we've already talked about, but
I love that you're trying to make fetch happen.
I'm going to make it happen.
I'm down. I'm okay with it. I like it.
But but this is
I
sort of a big investment by the party. And when we're sitting here on election night or in the week after election night, I mean, we'll be talking about the seeds that were planted now as to whether or not Democrats take control of the House. And it could be that simple.
And I think there was also a real question tonight, not necessarily progressive versus moderate, but also new versus seasoned.
Yeah.
I use the word old, right? There were a number of kind of upstart Democratic candidates, particularly in these House races,
Swalwell
that
was
were trying
the front
to shake
runner.
up the establishment.
Had to drop
Many
out.
of them who'd said they would not support
And that's what
Hakeem
led to
Jeffries
Becerra.
as Speaker of the House if the Democrats were able to win back the majority. And I don't really see a consistent thread here among the results so far tonight that demonstrates that one side is winning out over the other. In some cases, we've seen the establishment Democrat do well, for instance, in the Iowa Senate race. But in some of these congressional districts in California, we've seen the upstart progressives and the younger candidates do well. So that, I think, is kind of the story of where the Democrats are trying to figure out where they are as a party.
Why is there a
Are they this
Kornacki
new
cam?
next generation,
Because the people
or
want
do
it.
they want to stick with what they know? And I don't think they've answered that
We've
question.
not seen any troubling signs for the incumbents yet either in what we've seen so far. Some of the older incumbents who are hanging on.
Yep. Like Doris Matsui. I mean, she's
Yeah.
doing incredibly well.
No, I mean, look, I will say this. If we're sitting here on election night and we're at about midnight and California is deciding the House majority, it's been a pretty bad night for Democrats. Like, there are a lot better opportunities they should be having in a lot Eastern, Central, Mountain time zones that should take them over that very small margin that they currently need to win the majority. I think also there's been a lot of talk in Iowa on the Democratic side. Ashley Hinson's a really good candidate. And I think that she didn't have a competitive primary. She's as good, if not better, than Joni Ernst. The first district back when she won it was a Democratic seat. It was at best a purple seat. It had been held by Bruce Braley and the Republican Rod Blum. She made it 57% for the Republican last time around.
Seems like the difference between LA and New York was
better
DSA
going up against
ground
Rob
game.
Samuel and Zach Lane than I did Feenstra,
That's
who was
one part
losing
of it.
altitude these last couple weeks. I was surprised it was that close. I think I'd probably attribute that to the Trump endorsement. But Feenstra was losing altitude for the last 2 weeks. Not a surprise.
I'll just say, though, our buds over at the Cook Political Report have just recategorized that Iowa race from likely to lean Republican now, right? I mean, because of the fact that Josh Turek is, in fact, the winner there.
I'm not surprised because I think to those folks, Feenstra is a known quantity. He's been in federal office for a couple terms. Lane isn't. And so I'm not surprised at that. I expect that to evolve a little bit. But again, Feenstra ran a great race.
We touched just on this
do
to
this
start,
every
but if you're
time
national
with
Democrats,
California
there's
elections
a lot
where
worse places you could
they start
decide to,
panicking
have your
over
Alamo than
what
in
seems to
Iowa
be
right now. I mean, there's
a red
so
wave.
much at play right now. You've gotten the candidates
It's
you
not-
wanted. You've gotten the Republican
It's
candidates
not
you
the
wanted in the governor's
Republican
race.
for like
Here with
right
kind of an
here. The
unknown in Zach
concern
Lane,
is
and that could
not.
obviously come back to bite Democrats in the long
I
run.
still don't
But it's
think
just
that
such a great
Republicans
state
are
to try
going to
to
win.
plant your flag and win not
It's
just
that
the midterms, but the
we're
argument
going
about the
to
kind of
end
people you're
up
trying to reach.
with
And who's going to determine
status
whether or not we're
quo
winning that argument are
centrists.
going to be independent voters. If you look at Iowa, there are a third of voters in Iowa. Right now, Trump is polling at 25% with independent voters.
You're going to
in
end
Iowa.
up with
So
corporate
that's
establishment
a huge opportunity for the
shills.
Democratic Party. And you've got somebody like Stan who's positioning himself as, you know, not the typical Democrat. He's a sportsman. He's leaning into his own faith. He's doing an exceptional job of making the case about corruption and the economy, why the economy is so bad. And that is having overwhelming appeal to independent voters. They're now trending Democratic than they are for Republicans. So that is where the opportunity
In the AG
rests.
race, there's only one Republican, Democrat, Green Party can, and the Democrat only leads by 12 points.
Because again, Democrats have not won a Senate seat in Iowa in almost 20 years, basically. And so don't get excited. I'm going to talk about Texas for 1 second.
We haven't done your obligatory Philly mention yet. Do you want to work it in this segment?
For like a minute. But like a la Texas, when we were all sitting together during that thing talking about, you know, is James Tallarico going to be able to you know.
Yeah.
But there are some places that are.
But Iowa's more like Georgia than it is.
Saw
like
a billboard
Texas.
the other day that said Black mothers support Spencer Pratt. And all the women on it were fully AI generated.
Like Hinson is.
It's
I think
literally.
we're not talking about her to go back to that point.
I love boosters.
We saw this in 2020 when Joni Ernst was running against Teresa Greenfield. And this is also true, I would say, in Montana. Montana and Iowa, you're going to get a poll, let's say October 1st, that has the Democratic candidate within about 4. You always will. It's a tale as old as time. No matter what the margin is, I think Republicans will pull out both seats. But you will see one or two very
We're going to end up in
polls
California here with just more shit from the butt.
People will freak out. Tons of money will go in. And things will go back to equilibrium.
But again, one last thought on Iowa. I mean, why that could be the sort of like leading indicator here. It's also a demographic, you know, play here. In Iowa, if you're going to win, you're going to need to win white voters, white men, like the people who've been working class white men who've drifted so far away from the Democratic Party. That's a big lift. But if you're doing it there, we're not having the California conversation at midnight. We're talking about a bigger deal.
But are Democrats happy that Josh Turk's the one that is going to be telling that story in the state of Iowa instead of Zach Walz?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, he's, again, positioning himself as a moderate, which is appealing to those particular votes. Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. Great profile. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, I mean, I think we're feeling very good about Iowa. But when I was making the point that Iowa's more like Georgia, we picked up seats in Georgia when Trump at the midterms, when Trump
as
was
of right now, it does not seem as if
you know, you look at the
Ray Huang's voters
that flip Georgia,
would have.
You can see them there possibility as great possibility.
Ray Huang's voters going to Nithya would have pushed her to a clear second.
If you have something, do it. Otherwise, I got a Montana question for you.
All the Nithya supporters who were already pre-blaming Ray Huang
in LA.
and Ray's supporters.
Small chunk. Adam, how did it break?
I'm not looking that way.
It broke
fast 40.
Right.
But they're still going to try to find ways to blame a la how Kamala and her supporters
this is
blamed
I suspect this is,
people
it
who
broke
voted third
about
party.
2-1 for Bass over Pratt. Again, it's a small number of votes.
Okay.
Remember that the LA told us that they expected they would have a few updates throughout the night of that vote by mail, which we saw was very good for Bass early on. So I suspect that's what we just got. One of their incremental updates of vote by mail that they said would come in overnight. That, again, that's the dynamic here. That vote by mail is going to probably be better there for Bass, and maybe even Rahman for that matter, than Pratt, although Pratt has a pretty good cushion over Rahman right now. But there is still an update to come in this mayor's race, probably in these overnight hours, maybe soon here, from the polling place vote that I expect would be very favorable to Pratt. Then after that, it would be all late arriving mail. That is a very, if you're Pratt though, that cushion you have over Rahman, I think that's the big development in this race tonight. That's a pretty significant cushion.
You know, and Garrett is right that this is a
This is a very good night for Spencer Pratt.
You know, given the fact that we were saying that there was a possibility that she wouldn't even be in the runoff, the fact that she's comfortably in the runoff right now, as it appears to be,
third party
and if you look, there's far more Democratic votes
will be treated as a joke, but then also blamed for elections being lost.
She looks like she's on the path to survival, despite everything that she's
Which is a fascinating political dynamic, that she looks on the path to survival.
That we even have to be talking about her survival.
When a majority of people in the city say they want somebody else.
Yeah.
So as we're getting to the last 5 minutes of our coverage here, at least for the moment on this part of it, I wonder if I can ask you all, as we look at the landscape of the night, what we have learned. But I'll ask
Is
it
it
this way.
possible to get California progressive? I mean, never say never.
I maybe messed up the toss, which is the thing that you're obsessed with. You know, what is the thing that you're kind of obsessed with at the moment? I will tell you, I mean, I think Iowa's super interesting. I think what we saw in New Jersey was fascinating. I'm looking very closely. What is Tom Kean going to do when he comes back? Remember, that's the Republican in New Jersey who hasn't been seen since his last vote on March 5th. He's supposed to be coming back to work in person in a couple of weeks. He's facing Rebecca Bennett, as NBC News has projected, and that is going to be a gangbusters race in Jersey here. Ryan, you next.
You stole like the best three. That's okay.
Yeah. She goes first.
That's why she goes first.
Did you know the first fabricated tech ads in the country were targeting Upton St. Clair's
what I'm obsessed with, and I'm probably
Socialist California Governor's Campaign?
We haven't talked about it yet, and that's that Dusty Johnson, who is the sitting congressman from South Dakota, who's running for governor, is giving up his safe House seat to run for governor. Looks like he might be on the outside looking in the runoff in South Dakota, which I think is pretty fascinating. Dusty Johnson's a well thought of member of Congress. He's somebody who is considered to be a productive member of Congress, was thought to be relatively popular in South Dakota.
Karen Bass going to get hit with the anti-veteran stroke, come out for police abolishment.
In South Dakota, including the Senate
Karen Bass is going to get
is
going to be reelected,
Dusty Johnson,
but actually become way more woke.
Appears to be at this stage appears to be on the outside looking in. I think is a pretty significant development, and the idea that he might be out of politics
she's gonna have the woke
by the end
stroke.
of this year, I think is pretty shocking.
Trailing Toby Doden maybe speaks to your point to the anger against incumbents.
I could speak on that because I could build on that, actually, Ryan. Thank you so much for setting
We
me
don't
up.
call it stealing, we call it building.
Well, no, that's right. I've been taking a list over the course of the night about all the House Republicans who run for other offices this year and have either lost or appear likely to lose or who've not gotten the Trump endorsement, who basically seems to have hit a dead end. And what I think we're seeing is a split here between Democratic voters who are looking for like kind of meat and potatoes, basic candidates. Your Turek's, your Rod Sands, some of these other candidates who can have credible governing experience and kind of, even Javier Becerra, who you could argue is kind of boring.
Here's my prediction. We're going to end up with
reporter who now is independent journalist who called him the cardigan of the race.
Becerra
kind of
as governor and Karen Bass as mayor.
Comfort people. Versus Republicans who are saying, I don't want your experience, I don't want your governing background, I want somebody who's authentic, somebody who's as pissed as the next guy. I'm looking at all the things our guy who told us he was voting for Spencer Pratt said. He wants authenticity, and he wants somebody who's as mad as they are, and there's that split still between the two parties. And we'll see how that aligns in November.
Ryan and Garrett stole all of your time, so you have 10 seconds.
So I mean, I think the economy is still the central issue across the country,
actually
and we see
worse
it,
because
in a
it's
stark
status
example
quo continuing.
in Iowa, where you have a situation where Medicare cuts are incredibly impactful to local voters. Tariffs are killing farmers. You got rural hospitals closing. You've got healthcare costs going up. I mean, that is a recipe for Democrats to actually win. You've got a state where Trump won by 13 points, and now it's a toss-up state. I mean, it's an incredible opportunity. Democrats are going to continue to invest a lot of money. We've got really good candidates that made it through. So I'm going to be watching how they position themselves and what that'll signal to Democrats who are going to be running in competitive.
No, Karen's not even going to pretend to stand against ICE because she'll go,
no, but like Tom Kaine's race is a perfect example, right? If Tom Kaine is surviving politically on election night and he's coasting to victory, and we're talking about California, then suddenly those California seats become a lot more important than the ones they hand drew for Democrats to win.
Steve, I gave the final word to you intentionally. What is the thing that you are obsessed with after tonight?
I'm obsessed with what happens here in this governor's race. Does this end up being the top two as Democrats? Does Steyer get a huge late arriving vote by mail here? Or does Hilton get in there? And you have a Republican versus Democratic contest in California. If you're Becerra, of these three, you're the one feeling best right now.
Okay, Steve Kornacki, we appreciate you so much. It's been a night.
Big night for the contrarian
We're going to have all the
crowd.
results on NBCnews.com.
Big night for the guys in the background of that reporter's
All right. We're switching over the transmission over to Kornacki Cam here over in this is like an interim studio between 3A and 3A West here at Rockefeller. Steve is walking back onto our set in front of our board.
This is cute.
What a night.
What a night.
Oh, cute. In other news, let me know about it.
Loyal viewers.
Well, let's go through it. Let's start here. Let's go through that. Well, okay, first of all, the governor's race here. Again, now about half of the vote is in here.
Yay, something good.
Adam, do we have, what was the last major update we got? Governor's race.
We got Trinity County, 21 votes.
I said major, you gave me the most minor thing possible.
Lake County, 780, Mariposa, 715,
so I can
Los
whine
Angeles,
about it.
10,000.
10,000, okay. Well, one thing I do think is interesting in the LA County portion of it, we were looking at this question here, of could Steyer, surpass Hilton on the late arriving vote by mail. Hilton is technically running ahead of Steyer here, in LA County. Again, this half of the vote, it's interesting, as overwhelmingly Democratic as this area is, the second Democratic candidate, so far at least, I expect that late arriving vote by mail will probably be more Democratic friendly and would help Steyer. But Steyer may not, with the hundreds of thousands of votes left here, probably like 900,000 votes left in LA County, I'm not sure how much Steyer will end up netting.
We just talked about George Santos.
But again, if there's a
He's
huge
back,
shift
baby.
there, I mean, that's really the question
just in time
here.
for Pride Month.
If there is a huge shift in that, in the partisan composition of that late arriving vote by mail, and there can be, because look, that's the other way to look at it. If there's 900,000 votes left in LA County,
how can he say it's overwhelming? No, he's talking about the late votes to come in.
600,000 remaining vote by mail,
which will be overwhelmingly Democrat.
If Steyer ends up beating Hilton in those votes by 10 points, that's 60,000 votes. If he can beat him by 20, it's 120,000. So it would need to get that much more Democratic. But in the context of this gap that Steyer faces here against Hilton, which is just under 300,000 votes right there, that's the kind of, again, it's just that late arriving vote by mail is such an element in this thing. LA mayor's race. So we were getting some communication from our decision desk on what to expect here. Where do we stand on that? And what's the immediate thing we're waiting on? Is it the
I think so. It's possible we get another batch of mail vote. We think the two most recent batches were mail vote. But yes, my guess is subsequent batches for the rest of tonight.
But we have an election day batch,
I think
right?
it's also just like putting it in the context of over 110,000 people have cast a vote for Spencer Pratt.
Polling place vote, right?
You
can vote at a polling place on election day, or you vote at the polling place, in person before the election, right? Collectively, that's probably like 15% of the vote right here. Now, if you remember, there was a big batch that came in, and we got all excited about it because it was a momentous moment when Pratt got closer to Bass there. We think that was the in-person early vote, right? It was polling place vote, but it was the in-person early vote. That was the big pro-Pratt sort of polling place vote that came in. Now to come is going to be the vote that was cast in person.
It's not looking great
tonight,
for her.
That's going to come in here. Is that going to be as pro-Pratt? Is that going to be a little bit different? But that's an opportunity for him, at least, I think, in theory there, to close this gap more with Bass. But again, that question is going to arise here with half the vote left in the city of LA. Well, again, after tonight, it'll be less than half. That late arriving vote by mail, is that overwhelmingly Democratic? Is that enough
Spencer
that
Pratt
Rahman
has a
could
very
erase this
nice lead
I tell you, though,
right
if you're Rahman,
now,
that is a pretty substantial
ahead
deficit,
of Nithya,
I think, that she faces here.
Even with all the late vote to come, because a lot of that's going to be for Karen.
There. So again, resolution tonight. This falls into the category of probably something that's going to take a little time to get to. The governor's race and the mayor's race. Let's go through the House races, because this is the stuff we wanted to spend some time on here. And let's just start. What did I do wrong here? House race. Why isn't it populating?
Click on one of our shortcuts first.
Nothing's populating.
Click on a shortcut and then.
Okay, so if we went up.
I'll explain again.
Tell me if these all.
I'll explain again.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
There is
so let's just, I mean, look,
much
first district,
late
this was
vote
one.
that is
this
still
is
to come.
The story on this is the Democrats
this is
radically
not the full
transformed this
story.
one gerrymandering.
California takes a very long time.
Very,
but as far as the outcome for the more progressive candidates here, it's
so
not looking.
Tonight, there is James Gallagher. There's an interesting footnote on Gallagher we'll get to.
So
but
that's
Gallagher,
why I'm saying
projected to finish
California
first right here.
in these
Would
major
it be
races
Mike McGuire,
is
state senator,
probably
Audrey
going
Denny
to end up just being more shit from the butt.
Clear
status quo,
McGuire,
centrist establishment,
race. And again,
corporate
you see Gallagher,
Dems.
the Republican, finishing first here. But this is a race where the Democrats are strongly
Becerra was polling at like less than 5.
And this would count.
Right,
again,
because
Democrats
then he became the establishment
pick. One of
pick.
those gains for them. The first district was a Republican. There it is. Look at that. We got results. That's,
wow.
We know how to get those check marks on the board. So there it is. It's going to be McGuire and Gallagher in the general election. McGuire, the overwhelming favorite. Now, that said, Gallagher is probably going to be a congressman come the general election. Why? Because if you remember, Doug LaMalfa, the Republican, unfortunately, the Republican incumbent in the old 1st District, passed away in January. So there is a concurrent special election playing out in the old, the one that Trump won in the landslide, the old 1st District tonight, that Gallagher has finished first. And has he cleared 50%?
He's at 61% right now.
Okay, it looks like he's going to clear 50%, meaning there won't be a runoff, meaning he'll get likely. Have we called it? I don't want to.
No.
Okay, we haven't called it.
The
but
political
he's very
center,
likely
the political center of Los Angeles is very establishment liberalism. Okay, so it's status quo liberalism. It's dedicated Democratic Party liberals. So what Nithya needed was she needed to appeal to those hardcore liberal voters who still believe in liberal institutions, ones who voted for Karen Bass, who drove her to victory. Nithya needs to take a significant percentage of those voters, which would bring Karen down and push her up. So Karen could still be, well, I mean, I don't really know what the math here, but maybe it would have been Karen and Nithya, or it would have been Spencer and then Nithya. But she needed to appeal to them on her policy expertise, on the fact that she's like, I have better policies here, even though I flip-flop back and forth, and also to hammer Bass's scandals in office, to bring a lot of attention to how terrible Karen Bass has been. But obviously these are liberal voters who aren't going to go vote for Spencer Pratt and say, I'm your option. I'm your dog in this race here. And frankly, Nithya, I don't think she brought it, because Karen is terrible. Karen Bass is a centrist all the way through, but Karen has more of that dog in her. Unfortunately, Nithya, in the appearances that she made, really did not do a very good job. And Karen just has more of that kind of killer political persona, where she has awful politics, but she makes people feel more confident in her. And I think people didn't feel a confidence, or just didn't know enough. I mean, Nithya, yes, is a councilwoman, so she did have name recognition, but either weren't aware of Nithya or just didn't feel wowed by her. She also endorsed Karen Bass, yes, and it was like 3 DSA council members endorsed Karen Bass as well. She endorsed Karen Bass, and then she got into the race at the 11th hour.
She, in the first vote by mail, Bass
Nithya doesn't seem like she wants to be there, or that she really wants this.
40%.
That was...
No, but sorry to interrupt.
It's kind of the vibe she gives off.
Rahman's number, 30, it was 34.5 to 30.7 to 33.
And Pratt's is down at about 20 in all of them.
Yeah, he was at 17, 20, and 20.
You think what I'm thinking?
It's late.
That's not what I'm thinking. The implications of that, right? We still have half the vote to come.
Yeah.
We're saying Pratt's got a pretty good cushion over Rahman here. And I think with this next polling place update, he may be able to expand that. But that polling place update's not going to be huge. So if we largely have half the vote to come, and it's going to be vote by mail, and you've already given me now, they've had 3 subsequent vote by mail updates. They're not huge, but they're not nothing. The pattern in them is Bass first, Rahman second, Pratt distant third.
Right.
If that were to be the pattern with the remaining vote by mail that's going to come in days following the election, if it's 39, 36, 33, 20, something like that, which is what you're telling me these 3 roughly have been, she could erase that.
Right.
That's what it would have to be. That's the shift that Rahman would need with the vote by mail that is yet to come.
But okay.
The other big variable there, we should say again, is when they get that polling place update. If that polling place update is super friendly to Pratt and bad for Rahman, then that math that I just laid out may change a bit. But it's interesting to see that kind of a shift, because remember,
a ton
when we got
of
the first
late
big report
vote
in the LA mayor's race,
and she's
that
competing
vote by mail,
with
that
Karen on
vote
those
by mail,
votes.
Pratt had some separation from Rahman. Bass was well in first, but Pratt had some separation from Rahman. If we end up having, hundreds of thousands of vote by mail, not hundreds of that, but tens of thousands of vote by mail to come, over 100,000 vote by mail to come, where Rahman is leading by that kind of margin over Pratt, it could still get interesting. That is a good cushion he has. But I'd be very interested in what that cushion looks like after we get the next polling place update. Because then we could take a look at that math and see if it.
I think that's a big variable. Yeah.
It's a big variable. And again, the guidance we've gotten from our decision desk on the timing of that is, we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, additional.
No, the margin.
It is earlier out there, but I think the pattern in the past has been they report, a few times over the course of the overnight here on the East Coast.
What's our plan here?
It's been a good broadcast. We can wrap up whenever you're ready.
Okay.
I mean,
Steve feels like he still wants to keep going.
I wanted to show the 6th. I do.
You were on the 6th.
Yeah. No. This is interesting because again, the dynamic here was Kiley, his Republican, his district got blown up. Barra moved into his district. Barra projected to finish first there tonight. Kiley moves to the 6th district, this very kind of strongly Democratic district now. Says, I'm not a Republican anymore. He says, I'm an independent. I'm going to run as an independent. And we got 40% of the vote in right here. And I want to kind of just linger on this a minute because I'm seeing something that may be interesting. So in Sacramento County, we're at about 38%. Payne is leading there over the two Republicans. He is leading, though, right? And, because these are like kind of equal size. Now, right. These are pretty comparable, these two counties, in terms of their share of the vote in this district. And you got the Democratic candidate running in third in like half the district, 800 votes behind one Republican. Kiley is not really, he's an independent, but
I do love watching Steve do math in real time.
Over here, he's the other Republican a little bit stronger here. It's closer. So it nets out
he's
to.
Cooking.
I ask you again, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
I got distracted by an Orange County vote report.
He's like, I'm not with you.
Let's see.
I'm not with
and
you.
Allowing for late arriving vote by mail to favor the Democrats. I think we really have to bake that in.
Yeah.
That probably is what Pan needs. Pan's closer to getting shut out here than you would have thought. In a district that is the product of the Democrats blowing up Kiley's district to create two Democratic districts. You've got Kiley running in first. You've got Pan, the Democrat, running in second, but only 1,230 votes ahead of the other Republican here. Another Democrat, gobbling up 12%, another Democrat 11%. And Pan is lagging so he's leading in the Sacramento County portion. So what's going on in Placer County, right? He doesn't have as much distance from the other Democrats. It's more Republican. That's interesting.
Along those same lines, yeah, the one I've been thinking about is California 40 with Calvert and Young Kim.
Mm-hmm.
Just because those initial Orange County report, I would expect that Young Kim would have gotten a better result
completely.
out of those initial returns. So I am very curious to see how much Kim Verrett can gain in the coming days.
Yeah, because I mean, look, in each county, Kim is not far ahead. Right, this was supposed to be, right, the inland suburbs of Orange County, inland area here was supposed to be, Kim was supposed to do very well here. Not a terrible surprise that Calvert's up good in Riverside, but yeah, no, I was surprised when I saw that number for Kim too. Does Kim make it to a runoff in California 40? We're not gonna, I don't think we're getting an answer tonight, but that's an open question. And this is at least, I didn't think this would be interesting at all. I wanted to see it was just a unique situation, an incumbent member thrown into a new district here running as an independent. I just put this up here to see how this would, what the number would be, and almost prepared to say maybe Kylie doesn't even get through tonight. I don't know. Well, the top two advance, and the Democrat, the top performing Democrat in this district right now is only, as we say, 1,100 votes, 1,130 votes ahead of the second place Republican. And again, looking at the geographical pattern between these two counties, you're seeing Pan run in first here, but not by a ton, and you're seeing Pan run in third here with not a lot of daylight to the other Democrats. Again, we always, you know what I'm going to say about the late arriving vote by mail. So again, if I'm sitting in a situation where I'm saying, hey, is there some world where Pan gets locked out? You got to counter that with, you assume the late vote by mail will boost them. So, but that's it. That's an interesting one. Again, probably nothing tonight, but that's an interesting one to think about. 22nd District, we've gone through this. We just got another vote update. About half the vote is in. I see Valadeo ticked up a little bit there, just in terms of the breakdown of where it's coming from here. Fresno County, we got Kings, we got Tulare. This is Villegas' neck of the woods. And what's the breakdown there? Yeah, Villegas ahead of, it's about 1,200 votes right there. Again, this is going to take a long time. It's going to take a long time to get that one.
Oh my God, I already feel tired. It's been
48th district.
It's been less than 2 hours.
Von Wilpert. I'm just looking if there's anything. Oh, in the 13th district, right? Trump's endorsed Kevin Lincoln here, from Stockton,
it's
which is the new part of this district.
Election cycles.
Although Lincoln's only running a kind of distant second right there, but Lincoln nonetheless. 12 points ahead here for second place, again, with the Trump endorsement in a district that was, again, that's very even on paper, but that's more friendly to Gray than it was before. He won one of the closest races in the country in 2024. So this is something Democrats are expecting him to keep. Those are the 45th district, Derek Tran. We had, oh man,
I think 11 was called for. 11 was called for Scott Wiener as the winner.
I wanted to see here, right?
Which is not, it's not a wild thing, but it's a matter of second place. I think Steve triggered a migraine on me.
I wanted to look at, I promise.
This is the other guy's like, what if we just called it? And Steve's like, what if I just keep going?
Won a very close race against Michelle
Karen Bass gave a speech at the Church of Scientology.
One of the highest concentrations of, I think every candidate is Asian American in this race. One of the highest concentrations this district of, it's Little Saigon. Westminster, Garden Grove, California, strong Vietnamese American population there. Interesting dynamics in that race, but that's obviously a. Tran's got the only Democratic candidate in there. So anyway, look, we'll wrap it up here. It was it's what we said it might be in California, unresolved. Can Pratt hold on to second place there? What's it going to look like when that next batch of polling place comes in? Then what does the post-election vote by mail look like? Can Pratt hold on to second place in Los Angeles for the mayor's race? And can Steve Hilton hold on to a place in the runoff in California? Or will the Republicans get locked out? And will it be a Democrat versus Democrat general election? Plus a couple of twists and turns still to come in these House races. We will track it in the hours, days, maybe weeks ahead. But as we said with California, a lot happens quick and then a lot of nothing.
Thank
so we're getting
you,
to a lot of nothing. We'll call it a night. Adam, thank you. It's a pleasure. And thank you, everybody, for watching. I know it was a hectic night. And if you stayed with us, my gosh, I love you even more than I loved you last week. So thank you. Have a good night.
So... one thing to remember is that last mayoral election, Karen Bass was trailing Caruso by 5 points, but then when all of the late mail came in, she ended up beating him by 7. So that was a difference of 12. That man is tired. Yeah, he is. He's tired, but it's a good night for Becerra. Yes, it is. Did Steve just basically say nothing happens? He basically said what he said at the beginning and at many points throughout the Kornacki Cam segment, which is that California takes forever. Okay, so good. What the W's from tonight? Adam Homoy, who won. That was great. I was interesting if you're looking at this from the Democratic Party's perspective, they are smiling after tonight because their chances in the general are looking better since Trump's guy Feenstra lost. Marissa Roy is leading for city attorney, which is really, really huge because the DSA, the Democratic Socialist Council members, will have an easier time passing progressive legislation, not passing the legislation, having it be enforced like tenant protections with a city attorney like Marissa Roy. Kenneth is absolutely killing it as he's running for his second term. Kenneth Mejia, who's running for comptroller in Los Angeles. We talked about PG&E during movie night of Aaron Brockovich. Look who Javier Becerra's largest corporate donor is. Hell yes. Who's buying Javier? Who's not buying him? That's what the headline should be here. Who's not buying Javier Becerra? A lot of people are hoping Spencer Pratt could lose, so he will move out of LA and California, as he said. Yeah, except a lot of the Zionist freaks in New York said that they would leave New York City if Zohran Mamdani won, and they not only haven't done that, they've continued to be a public nuisance. They've continued to stalk and harass and be all around fucking freak-ass weirdos. So it's a Pixar, it didn't happen. It's an actually get out of there or, yeah, no, of course they'll never move. Javier Becerra, California governor, introduces bill to rename state McCalshy Phase Chevron. Solid Gold Magic Corp. Yeah, he is, he's a corporation in human form. That's who he is. It's insane that he's only here because Eric Swalwell. This is how powerful the machine is in California. Okay. Eric Swalwell was the front runner in this race. Now it was still close, but on the Dem side, he was the front runner. Swalwell has to withdraw because he's a sexual abuser. Piece of shit. And then now we have Javier Becerra, who is leading right now, likely to go to the general. And it's insane that it is a reflection of how powerful the machine is, because this is who then became their guy once Swalwell was out. Katie Porter at a whopping 4%. Where's the pod safe guys talking about? Yeah, thank you so much for they're so brave.
California. The big race, of course, is the jungle primary for governor. Same question for each of you. Who'd you end up supporting and why?
I am going to vote for Tom Steyer. If the polls are to be believed, and they've been pretty consistent, Becerra is going to move on. One other will. There's a chance Tom Steyer can be that second person. I would much rather have two Democrats battling it out for the future of the Democratic Party in this state than I would have Becerra versus a Republican who has not passed the threshold question of opposing Donald Trump's election lines. Like, that to me is a threshold question. You can be frustrated with Democrats in this state. You can believe that Democrats have fucked up in California, but if you can't say Donald Trump lost that election, if you can't stand up to him, then that is so fucking dangerous, and he's a nut for that. I also really liked my conversation with Tom Steyer. I think he had good answers for some of the questions about where Democrats have gone wrong in California and some of the criticisms. I also really like Katie Porter, but she just
that's
hasn't
the line. Yes.
risen to the top of the poll. It sucks because I really like her, but I'm trying to be pragmatic with my vote.
If I could wave a magic wand and make someone governor, it would be Katie Porter, but she is down in the polls.
Why?
I have the same rationale. I want to vote strategically because I think Steyer and Becerra going to a runoff would be great. It would kind of be annoying if we had to deal with, running in Steve Hilton, who's a random British short king who's like deep in the tech community.
I don't think his height's a problem.
I do love that triggered you of all the
Also, not every guy who's short is a short king. Okay, that is a different thing. Short king is different.
If I were doing ranked choice, I would be Katie number one.
I thought about Becerra, but I don't feel confident
Why, John?
giving the top job to someone he's had 35 years in elected office to prove himself, but has received mainly bad reviews from his colleagues.
Come on.
Very late to introduce any kind of housing policy whatsoever until after ballots dropped. Even then, it was more NIMBY than Steyer or Porter or anything else. And now, I hope I'm wrong. And if he wins, then great, maybe he'll be a great governor. But just it prevented me from voting Becerra. Steyer.
I can't believe that's what prevented him from voting Becerra.
I'm more confident in Steyer. For me, it was the combination of he's never had any experience in elected office or governing anything, and is a billionaire who basically ran for president first.
It's so funny that John is mentioning the issue with Tom Steyer being a billionaire, and yet he did not bring up the fact that all the other California billionaires are funding Becerra
out there, then spent just the GDP of a small country on this race. I like his positions better than Becerra and a lot of the other candidates, but I'm just there's just something a little icky to me about it. So I just voted for Katie Porter because I like her. It is the least strategic thing I could do, but Katie to me is like I've known her a while. The temperament with her staff stuff is obviously it bothered me a lot because we've known her forever, and I actually didn't know that until those stories came up. I also don't think she's going to win at this point, but I'm who do I want to be governor? She's thought about the job a lot. She has a really well thought out policy platform. She's actually worked on passing legislation and getting things done when she was in Congress. And I feel she's just done the work for the job more than anyone else.
This is the pod that's supposed to be saving America. The liberal mind. Yeah. Okay, other races. City Attorney Marissa Roy doing well so far. Oh wait, this is an hour ago. I think it's probably about the same though. Fuck! Tracy Park is terrible. Terrible. She's destroying Faiza Malik, though. Okay, Hugo Soto Martinez. That's good. Kenneth is doing great. All right. Well, what is happening in California? Only good things. West Coast is the best coast, baby. West Coast is the best coast. California does need a ranked choice voting ballot measure. Yes. Not even Biden could say Becerra.
COVID team that I'd like to introduce to you now, who will lead the way. I'm really proud of this group. For Secretary of Health and Education Service, I nominated Javier Baccaria. Javier Bashira, excuse me. He currently the Attorney General of California, leading the
Biden really was just saying whatever. He was just saying words. Javier Baccaria, sure. Oh, excuse me, Javier Bashira, which is also not it. But all right, fine. I have to run that back. Hogan, thank you for the gifted Maxwell. Thank you for the 6 months.
Proud of this group. For Secretary of Health and Education Service, I nominated Javier Baccaria. Javier Bashira, excuse me. He currently the Attorney General of California, leading the second largest Justice Department in America, only behind the United States Department of Justice.
Oh God! Remember when the Democratic Party tried to pretend that nothing was wrong with Biden? They're like, no, he's actually sexier than ever. He could run a marathon and no problem. Like that guy? Oh, yeah, he could definitely be president again. Abso-fucking-lutely.